what got lost in all the hype about when he says Ukraine can win and get all of its territory back. Of course, many people were like, "Oh wow, this could be a real change," and then he says that the EU can help them do that. He didn't say NATO; it's the EU, which is
Yes.
clearly the United States is would not be a part of that, and this is not statesmanlike leadership. This is, arms deals. And I don't know how this is good for America's strategic interest.
Now, the German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, is calling for effective deterrence from NATO after those repeated airspace violations by Russia. I spoke yesterday to the former Finnish general, and now a Finnish MEP, Pekka Toveri. He told me NATO had to be more proactive.
We should declare the air policing mission to air defense mission and take the weakest link from the command structure away, that is politicians. Declare that the decision of using of force is with the military, the KOK, who is running the air operations in the Baltic Sea area, and that the NATO will follow the normal international rules. First, you order the violating plane to leave the airspace. If that doesn't happen, you shoot a warning shot, and if that's not enough, then we shoot it down.
That's Pekka Toveri there. Now let's welcome to the programme General Ben Hodges, former commander of the US Army in Europe. Welcome to you, General.
Hey, John. Thank you very much.
It's always good to have you on the show. So I want to talk about NATO as you would expect, but let me first ask you about this, General. I'm seeing reporting now that pretty much all US generals and admirals have suddenly been ordered back to the USA to gather at the Marine Corps base in Virginia. We're talking about hundreds of the most senior officers suddenly summoned to one place. Have you any notion of what that might be about?
Well, of course, I read the Washington Post article earlier today about that. I don't know the specifics, and amazingly, most of the people who are being called back also don't know why they're being called back. So speculation is rampant about what it is. I would imagine, and this is my speculation, I would imagine it will be the Secretary laying out what they are proposing as the new strategy, which is probably going to be more focused on the Western Hemisphere. This is the things they've been talking about. I can imagine he's going to tell them about a 20% reduction in the number of senior officers and probably in other parts of the force structure. And then probably also some of the things that the Secretary has talked about, military leader or leaks coming out of the Pentagon or talking to the press, things like that. So everybody's guessing what it's going to be about. But that's what I'd say. It's a command realignment, force structure changes, and refocusing of the military.
Okay, it's going to be a very important gathering. We'll be watching that one very closely. And General, when you talk about a reassessment of global strategy, are you talking about a new relationship essentially between the United States, the principal pillar of NATO, and the America's allies in Western Europe and so on?
Well, I certainly hope that's not what's going to happen. But the administration has been signaling these kinds of things for quite some time, that they keep talking about wanting to focus on our borders, the Western Hemisphere, all this from Greenland to Canada to the Panama Canal, going after Venezuela, repositioning of ships into the Caribbean. So it has the feeling. And then, interestingly, a couple of days ago when the president said that, Russia's a paper tiger, Ukraine can win.
Yeah.
In a way, he's saying, okay, well, if Russia's a paper tiger, we can start pulling stuff out of Europe.
Yes.
This is me trying to fill in a gap. I don't know that that's what it is, but that all kind of fits, unfortunately, because
Yes.
I think it's a terrible time to pull out of Europe.
I mean, strong supporters of the Western Strategic Alliance, as it has been historically, seem to be sharing exactly that fear, the fear that you articulate there, General, that when President Trump talks about he would support NATO shooting down Russian jets, that he believes that Ukraine could regain all of the territory that it's lost to Russia. It sounds as if he's being, on the surface, superficially, as if he's being much more hawkish about Russia, but he just may mean he's washing his hands of it. He's saying, I will let you get on with this job, maybe sell you arms. In other words, and I sort of summed it up in this way yesterday, more of an arms dealer than an ally.
Yeah, that's unfortunately, and it pains me to agree with you on this, but I think that's exactly what's happening. And interestingly, when what got lost in all the hype about when he says Ukraine can win and get all of its territory back, of course, many people were like, "Oh, wow, this could be a real change." And then he says that the EU can help them do that. He didn't say NATO; it's the EU, which is
Yes.
clearly the United States is would not be a part of that. And this is not statesmanlike leadership. This is arms deals. And I don't know how this is good for America's strategic interests. All of our best and most reliable allies have always come from Europe as well as Canada and Australia. And now, I read what Secretary Bessent said 2 days ago. He said, "Hey, there's no troops are talking about marching into Warsaw. They're not marching into Boston."
Mm.
And this is like 1920s isolationism that only ends poorly for the United States.
It is a confusing picture, General, isn't it? Because the threat from Russia is present. The threat from Russia is clear. The incursions into NATO airspace have been happening over recent days, and as things stand, the United States has over 80,000 armed force personnel on European territory and something like 40 bases. If this thing were to escalate suddenly to the point even of shooting, well, American forces are committed pretty substantially in Europe now. What would that mean?
Well, of course, you're right about the number. It's not that many compared to what it was in the past. I mean,
No,
we could not fill up Wembley Stadium if you had every man and woman in uniform from the United States that are stationed in Europe now. They couldn't fill up Wembley.
no.
Uh, but the bases that we have in Germany, for example, and UK and Spain and Italy and Greece and Turkey, in Poland, this allows the United States to quickly project power, not just against a possible attack from Russia, but also into the Middle East,
Yes.
into Africa. This is why this is not about guarding Germans. This is about our strategic interests. And I really think that this is very short-sighted. Of course, every president has complained that Europe has not done its what it should have done. There's no doubt about that. And we are still so slow in responding to being prepared for what Russia is doing now. Their drone operations in multiple countries, their Air Force flying 12 minutes in Estonia. I mean, we have got to change the thinking in the Kremlin, and they only will change their thinking when we inflict consequences on them. And there's a lot of things we could do, but we still seem reluctant to do it.
I mean, that is such an important point, isn't it? I mean, we're talking about America's military reach through, as you say, the Mediterranean, the Middle East, into Africa and the Arctic. If America is talking about disengaging substantially from the defence of Europe, well, those bases, those assets, they're right in the middle of all of this. We've spoken about military assets, but the American intelligence through satellite surveillance is so important, and the land bases for those are in Europe too.
Well, and of course, I'm wrong on all this. Secretary Hegseth may not say anything about along these lines, but
Yes.
I'm just listening to what's been said and trying to piece it together. The United States benefits from this intelligence relationship we have with our allies, especially the UK. And part of that is based on decades of trust, of working together, of relationships, systems that tend to work together. So we would only be hurting ourselves if we begin to withdraw from the relationships, the intelligence sharing processes. NATO, never perfect, but still the most successful alliance in the history of the world. Countries still in a queue to join NATO. I don't know that any of this is going to happen,
No.
but that feels like the mood music that we're hearing a little bit. With so much talk about focusing on the Western Hemisphere, the president's bizarre speech at the UN General Assembly. Um, I hope that the Congress steps in because the Congress overwhelmingly supports NATO, the transatlantic relationship, and Ukraine. But the Republican leadership, I think, is terrified of the president.
Okay, just one more question, if we can. Again, as always, thanks for your time. I wonder what you think. I ask this question with particular interest as a journalist, but I suggest it is of interest to anyone who believes in accountability. We all see now that at the Pentagon, the headquarters of the American military, the Pentagon, journalists there, specialists have been banned from reporting anything that has not been authorized by the Pentagon. And it's a pretty extraordinary development. I wonder what your thoughts are.
Well, I've worked at the Pentagon 3 or 4 different times, and so you're accustomed to seeing journalists, accredited journalists, moving around the Pentagon, doing their job. That was part of the process. This transparency on things that are not classified information, and of course, there was always a trust between the military and the journalists who were there that they would never betray information, just like when we have journalists embedded with us in the field. So it's the same principle as having them with us in Afghanistan or Iraq, for example. I think this is a tremendous mistake by Secretary Hegseth because, we need the American people to have confidence that the money is being spent on defense and what we're doing, that their sons and daughters are properly trained and equipped. And when you shut down all information about that, I don't see the good that comes out of it. But this reflects, in my view, a lack of confidence of the secretary, a lack of maturity, and I think eventually, good journalists are going to do their job. They'll find ways to do their job. I recently watched the movie The Post about the Pentagon Papers. You remember, with Meryl Streep and Tom Hanks?
Yes, I did. One of my favorite movies.
Incredible. I mean, a reminder of what's at stake. And, First Amendment. But this is another example, I think, of our Constitution is under attack by this administration.
General, really, really a pleasure to talk to you as always. General Ben Hodges there.